Let's talk about the rise and fall of Bib Fortuna's criminal empire. Once again, Sublight's got you covered with a rundown of several sources to piece together a picture of what really went down on and off screen in that galaxy far, far away. In this deep dive, we're pulling from sources including the prequels, original trilogy, animation, and short stories.
Did you call for assistance?
Bib Fortuna was born on the Twilek homeworld of Ryloth. Unlike the revolutionary powerhouse of Clan Syndulla, the Fortunas gained their reputation through infamy, and it was no secret the Fortuna family had deep connections to the planet's criminal underbelly. Ryloth's underworld revolved around two main commodities. They had a lucrative spice trade. Spice was a powerful drug which was smuggled throughout the galaxy. Then there was Twilek trafficking. During the time of the Republic and the Empire, Twileks were sought after by unscrupulous masters, primarily for their exotic nature and universal beauty. Bib Fortuna made his start in the family trade of drug smuggling and trafficking Twileks.
They were no longer.
Eventually earning the attention of Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine, where both these trades would make Bib a powerful man to have at your side. Fortuna was no stranger to criminal organizations when he became Jabba's majordomo. This occurred sometime before 32 BBY. That's 32 years before the Battle of Yavin. Being this close to a crime lord with as short a fuse as Jabba meant the job of number 2 was not for the faint of heart. If you're curious as to what happened to Jabba's last majordomo, look no further than this pile of bones in the Rancor pit. That was Bidlo Querv, a human who once held the role of Jabba's majordomo. Fortuna's familiarity with criminal enterprises meant he managed to hold on to the position of Jabba's majordomo for more than 3 decades. It was a position that he held all the way up until the day of Jabba's death at the hands of Leia Organa. But what you might not have realized is that before Leia choked the life out of Bib Fortuna's master, a second assassination plot was already in motion, one which was orchestrated by a frustrated Fortuna himself. Bib Fortuna despised his master and had set in motion a plot to shoot Jabba on the way to the public execution of Luke, Han, and Chewbacca at the pit of Carkoon.
I used to live here, you know.
You're gonna die here, you know. Convenient.
Bib was furious that even though he had climbed to the heights of the palace's majordomo, he was still made to do menial tasks around the old monastery for more than 30 years. The final straw came for Bib Fortuna when the palace received an unexpected guest in 4 ABY. It was the young Jedi Knight, Luke Skywalker. Bib was under strict orders not to let Skywalker pass, but the Jedi convinced him to grant an audience with Jabba anyway.
Upon Skywalker.
You will take me to Jabba now.
Under the Jedi's influence, Bib presented Luke to his master.
You serve your master well.
The Hutt quickly admonished his majordomo for allowing the Jedi to come face to face with the almighty Jabba.
Jedi mode speed go eat.
Fortuna was embarrassed and enraged at first being called a weak-minded fool and for being discarded from Jabba's dais like a common serving droid. After decades of abuse at the hands of the crime lord, Bib Fortuna vowed to finally murder the Hutt. The next day, when Jabba's palace hands were preparing their master's pleasure yacht, the Katana, for a trip out to the Dune Sea, Bib snuck into the kitchen and stashed a one-shot blaster pistol in the crates of food being loaded on board. He stashed the small weapon in a crate of live Tatooine paddy frogs, the ones that Jabba enjoyed while holding court. The frogs were somewhat of a delicacy for Hutts, but Bib Fortuna found the slimy creatures to be absolutely revolting, thinking that they reminded him of his target, Jabba. In reality, Bib Fortuna's plan was pretty simple. Once aboard the Katana, he would enter the kitchen, retrieve the blaster, and use it single round to put a hole in Jabba's head. Nothing would be out of the ordinary when he was at his master's side during the execution of their prisoners. There, at the pit of Carkoon, while everyone was distracted by the show outside the yacht, Bib would take his master by surprise.
This is your last chance. Free us or die.
The time to feed Luke Skywalker to the Sarlacc had come, and Bib snuck off to the kitchen to retrieve his blaster when all hell broke loose aboard the Katana. The rebels were attempting to escape their execution, and despite the chaos in the cabin, this proved to be the perfect distraction for Bib to execute his plan. But before he could even retrieve his one-shot blaster from the kitchen, he came upon an incredible sight. Jabba's latest dancing girl, the rebel leader and Princess Leia Organa, had seized the moment. She was using the chains that kept her at Jabba's side to choke him. Bib Fortuna could hardly believe what he was seeing. Nor could he quite believe his luck. Not only was Jabba dead, but there was nothing that could trace the murder back to him. And on top of it all, he just saw Boba Fett, a bounty hunter who was criminally overrated among the denizens of Jabba's palace, experience a hilarious jetpack malfunction which sent him directly into the maw of the Sarlacc. Guys, I mean, could this day get any better for Bib Fortuna?
Get the gun! Point at the deck!
I wanted to invite you to join us here at Star Wars Sublight if you haven't already. This is the one place where overanalyzing the galaxy is our speciality. You'd be amazed at what you miss while traveling at light speed. So why not come out of hyperspace and explore the finer details of that galaxy far, far away with us?
Use my knowledge, I beg you.
Because when you sub to Sublight, you join thousands of other Star Wars fans looking to know just a little bit more about the galaxy. So come on, sub to Sublight today.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Bib was caught in the explosion which rocked the Katana, and he was launched into the Dune Sea. Once the fighting had stopped, he was eventually pulled from the sands by an odd band of saviors. A Gamorrean guard and two of the palace musicians, Droopy McCool and Max Rebo. Jabba the Hutt was dead, and these four seemed to be the only survivors of the massive explosion. As cunning as always, Bib Fortuna saw an opportunity and made a play for Jabba's throne right then and there. Just that morning, Bib Fortuna was a nobody to Jabba. But to these three souls, he was now the highest ranking member of Jabba's palace to have survived the disaster. Bib solidified his play for power by declaring himself as Jabba's successor, and offering each of his fellow survivors a special place in what Bib called his new empire.
Your new empire?
He offered the Gamorrean the role of his protector and promised both Droopy and Max an endless stream of Mos Eisley Stadium concert contracts. A huge step up from their regular gigs at the palace. Bib's bid for power had been set in an afternoon, spent on a life raft skimming across the Dune Sea. It was going to be a long ride back to the palace on their beaten-up skiff, and eventually the group would start to grow hungry. Bib Fortuna reached into the skiff's cargo hold to find something to eat, but all he could find aboard was a crate of paddy frogs. Fortuna was starving, and he knew he would need his strength in the hours to come as news spread that he was destined to ascend to Jabba's throne. With nothing left to lose, Bib stuffed one of the revolting paddy frogs in his mouth, and he was surprised to find he actually enjoyed the taste. Or perhaps they were just now more palatable when tasting them from the new position of Tatooine's latest daimyo. Either way, Bib grabbed another, just like his old rotund master, Jabba the Hutt would have. Bib's new penchant for paddy frogs would kick off an unhealthy habit, which would see him pack on the pounds over the next 5 years as he continued to rule from the palace throne. Even though Bib Fortuna managed to secure the palace after what came to be known as the sail barge disaster, Jabba's underlings were not exactly inspired by this change in leadership. There was a time when Jabba's empire stretched across the surface of Tatooine, but his organization became fractured under Fortuna's rule, with territories carved out across the planet. The might of the Hutt cartel was enough for Jabba to rule through fear and reputation, but Bib Fortuna's standing was significantly weaker. He was going to have to rely on his own strength and rule through cunning, choosing to broker deals with other parties formerly under the yoke of Jabba's empire.
Master Bib did not have the power of Jabba, so he relied on uneasy alliances to preserve his tribute and title.
In the town of Mos Espa alone, there were 4 factions in control. There were the Tatooine crime family who controlled the spaceport, the Trandoshans who operated within the city center, the Aqualish controlled the workers district, which left Bib Fortuna with a very diminished territory on the outskirts of Mos Espa to rule over. Bib managed to hold on to power through corrupting officials like the mayor of Mos Espa, Mokshais, who was widely believed to be in Fortuna's pocket.
I know that you sit on the throne of your former employer. As you said, I serve at your pleasure.
Under the leadership of Bib Fortuna, it could be argued that the lawless nature of Tatooine soared beyond that of the Hutt era. Nikto bikers roamed the Jundland wastes and beyond. The Pikes were free to transport spice across the Dune Sea and sold within the city walls. Bib may have been an easy target after Jabba's fall, but he filled a vacuum and gave a longer lead to the gangs, which allowed them to operate under the Twin Suns seemingly at their leisure. In short, criminal enterprise under the rule of Bib Fortuna was probably pretty good. That is, until the legendary bounty hunter Boba Fett returned from the dead. Bib Fortuna, along with the rest of the galaxy, believed Fett had perished in the sail barge disaster. But all these years after, Fett returned to the palace unannounced. He shot his way through to the Great Hall and sought an audience with Fortuna. In a last-ditch effort to talk his way out of trouble, Bib Fortuna made his appeal to Boba Fett. But the bounty hunter wasn't gonna bow down to this new daimyo, especially one as cowardly as Bib Fortuna.
Bib Fortuna was not my employer.
Boba and Bib never did see eye to eye, and Fett fired a blaster shot into the Twilek's stomach. As Bib doubled over in pain, Boba ripped him from his throne, claiming it, and the title of daimyo, for himself.
Jabba is dead. His cowardly majordomo usurped his territory, and then I killed him. All that is his belongs to me now.
Sub to Sublight and like this video if you enjoyed learning about how Bib Fortuna went from majordomo to Mr. Daimyo of Mos Espa. Your support helps to reach more Star Wars fans just like us. For more revelations about the hidden stories that happened during Return of the Jedi, take a look at the playlist on the end screen now. I say it every time and I mean it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember that the Force will be with you, always.